Okay, so for today's project I thought I'd introduce you to my Pantograph Engraver. It's unfortunately a little bit of a sad reason for using it today. So we have a memorial board at the Model Engineering Club I'm in, and unfortunately we've had a member pass away last weekend, just as he was getting ready to come down to the club, sadly. So what I'll be doing today is just making up a little memorial plaque for him that will go on our remembrance board in the clubhouse. So little bit of a sad occasion, but I thought it'd be nice opportunity to show you the Pantograph Engraver, which perhaps not everybody has come across before. I'll just give you a quick overview of the various parts. So this is where this table is where you apply the copy. So unfortunately this is a previous one I've done. We'll come back to this in a minute, but basically we have movable type, which is centered. There's a center line here, and as you can see, it's just normal typeface. These just spin out, so they're sort of like quick, very quick to use. So this typeface I've got here is small and large capital letters, so there's no, the lowercase letters are really just smaller capitals. So what we have here is there's a stylus at the end of the pantograph arm, and you use that to trace the lettering, like so. And the pantograph it's basically a parallelogram. So you can see the stylus is on the end there. We have two parallel bars here, and then this is parallel to the first bar. So the nice thing with most pantographs is that you can reduce the size of what you engrave down from the size of the actually original copy, and to do that you alter the pivot points. So if I bring you down here, you can see that we're lined up on 3 on this point, and then if I bring you in, so that was there, and then on this pivot we've also got 3, and so you always want to keep the numbers the same. So what that basically means is that we have a 3-to-1 reduction. So the final adjustment that also needs to match up with all the other ones is here under the table. It's quite dark actually, but the number 3 here is lined up with this casting here. So if I come out a bit, this whole top piece will move in and out. So again, to get nice square text that's not canted over, you have to adjust that as well. So from the size of text that we've got on the copy table, it will be three times smaller where we engrave. So at the bottom end of the parallelogram is this kind of quite weird hinged arrangement, and the purpose of that is to keep everything parallel and vertical rather. This is the spindle, and you can see you have an engraving down mode, and then up to move between the letters. So just come out a bit. So that's down and that's up. I think if you move it this way, you do get a very slight variation. So as you can see from the nameplate, it's manufactured by Alexander. On the far side of the machine we have a motor, and a counter shaft, so that gives you 3 speed variations there. And then the counter shaft then runs up to a spring-loaded arm, which is here, and there's a belt that then runs across to the spindle. So the actual belt is sort of it's like a type of round string that's endless, so it's all been woven together. So here's another look at the drive mechanism. It is actually spring loaded, which we can see the springs just at the back here. What that basically does is as the spindle moves backwards and forwards, it keeps it under the same tension. So that's a close-up of the machine plate. You can see it's a 2B model, which is probably one of their smaller models actually. So this came from an engraving shop originally. Then we also have the speed plate. There's two speeds here on the spindle. So this is the plate that I'll be engraving. I bought a bag of 50. I think they're quite cheap to buy. I think just from eBay actually. I'll pop that in there. So I shall centralise it in the vise. These are actually, although they look like brass, they're actually a plastic, so it's easier to engrave, and the self-adhesive, which just makes them a lot easier to use in practice. So this is the original collet chuck, which has I think a 1/4 inch collet in it, and I've actually retrofitted it with the ER11 chuck. The runout's not too bad on it, so it's it just makes using the readily available Chinese engraving cutters, which is this part here. It just makes them easier to use because these have a parallel shank. I'm not sure if you can see that it's basically a D cutter, so it's ground to a point, and then half of the diameter is ground away, and then finally there's some the cutting edge is actually touched up as well. Okay, so I'll get set up and then I'll try and show you a bit more. So this is my box of fonts. As you build up the work, you just slide them into these slots here. They're actually the lettering in the slots is chamfered. I think different manufacturers have different chamfers, but in fact this is a Gravigraph font, but it does fit into this into the slots on this machine. So we just build up the name of this unfortunate chap. And it's fairly quick to do. Oops, I think that one's upside down. Let's try that way up. Okay. No, that's not a H. Does help if you can spell. So the next job we want to do is to centre the name on the in the platter. So we have some dots here, which mark, or centre punch marks, which mark the centre of the table. And to make this easy, what we use is a centering rule. As you can see, it starts in the middle at 0. So you know, if you put this in the centre, you really want the same number on each side. So I'll demonstrate that. So we put 0 in the centre, and I'll just pop that up. And what we can see at this end, we've got 6 centimetres, and this end we've got 7 centimetres. So I need to move everything a little bit towards me. So I think if we go to probably 6 3/4, that's centred, I think. So once you've done that, you just squeeze the type together so that it won't move at all. You don't want it loose, so it can move around. And then the next job is we need to see if this will fit onto our plaque. So I'm going to put that at one end, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to move it from one end to the other and just check that it will fit on the plaque. Okay, so I've got this is the engraving head, so you basically have it in the up position, and then I'm just going to bring it somewhere near the plaque. So that's about right. So the next thing to do actually is to centre this, to line up with the centre line of the table. So I shall move. So that's the centre line of the table. So that's our 0 point. So now what we can do is just check that our plaque is centralised. So that needs to be at 25mm each side. So I think quite there. That's it. Just pinch that up. Now this does need to be very flat, so I shall push it down and just apply a bit of pressure there. We want it to be very flat because the engraving bit will only actually go in a very small way into the plastic to actually make an impression. Okay, so that's central. Will this now fit? Will our full name fit on it? So that's the bottom of the A, and that looks good. And that's the bottom of the H, so that looks good as well. So the other thing we need to then do is just check that the position this way is correct. So that's the bottom of the A, and that's the top of the A. Now you can't quite see that, but I think that's about okay actually. So this is pretty much set up from how when I did it previously, so we don't need to adjust it this way. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is adjust the height of the milling table to get the depth of cut. So what I'm going to do is drop it down. I'm going to move the spindle lever down to its lowest position, which is there. I'm going to turn the spindle motor on, and then as I move gently across, I'm going to slowly increase the height of the table. So it will be a little bit loud, but hopefully still visible or understandable. Okay, so I think that looks okay. You probably can see that there's a protective clear plastic layer that pops up sometimes as the engraving goes on. But I'm reasonably happy with the depth of that. That looks okay. So what I'll do is I'll put you on time lapse as I go through. But basically, I'm tracing the letters on the table, and that movement is translated down into what you see at this end. as you can probably notice that as we got to the very end of the name, we stopped actually engraving. But for now, all I'll do is I'll just raise the table up very slightly, and we'll try again. So I shall put you back on time lapse. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now. I've figured out what I've done wrong. So this is the up and down lever, but there's actually a sort of a very slight variation when you move it left and right. So as you move it right, the engraving gets fainter. So I think what had happened is as I'm moving it around, I started off with it pushed forwards like this, and as I was engraving, I think it just ends up moving around slightly. I didn't realise. So I shall bear that in mind next time. So all I did was actually move this all the way to this position. So that's the lowest point, and just re-engraved it. I didn't touch the table height at all, and yeah, that worked fine. So I can drop the table down a little bit now. Just obviously these are quite fragile, so you don't want them banging into the vise. Obviously it'll damage the vise as well. So it doesn't look particularly nice at the moment. That's because there's this protective layer on. So if I peel that off, that's coming. There we go. So I hope you found that that interesting. Obviously this video is dedicated to Alan and his family, and his lovely 5-inch warship that he used to bring to a lot of our running days. So he'll be very much missed. He was quite an active member of the club. But anyway, I hope that's not put too much of a downer on your day. Hope you found this useful and interesting. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.